The silent uprising, the Zephyrian Dominion, had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their crystalline cities floated among the stars like jewels. Their fleets patrolled every known system, and their technology seemed almost magical to the countless species they had conquered. They were tall, elegant beings with translucent skin that shimmered like starlight, and they believed themselves to be the pinnacle of evolution. They had conquered worlds, enslaved entire species, and built an empire that stretched across 47 star systems. But they had made one critical mistake. 200 years ago, they had underestimated humanity. Marcus Chon wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the plasma conduit on mining station Omega 7. The station hung in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, extracting precious metals for the Dominions. War machine. Like every human in the galaxy, Marcus wore the neural collar that suppressed aggressive thoughts and ensured compliance. The Zephyrians called it a peace device. Humans had other names for it. The work was dangerous and exhausting. Humans were preferred for deep space mining because they could survive in harsh conditions that would kill most other species. The Dominions saw this as evidence that humans were meant to be workers, nothing more. They had stripped Earth of its resources decades ago and scattered humanity across their empire as laborers, never allowing more than a few hundred humans on any single world. Marcus had been working the mines for 15 years, ever since he turned 18. He had been an engineering student before the Dominion's integration protocol had relocated him. Sometimes, late at night, he still remembered calculus equations and thermodynamic principles. The collar couldn't erase knowledge, only passion. And rebellion. That morning started like any other. Marcus was calibrating the extraction arrays when the station's emergency klaxons began wailing. A massive asteroid, previously undetected, was on a collision course with the mining platform. The Zephyrian overseers immediately evacuated to their personal ships, leaving the human workers to handle the crisis. All maintenance crews to emergency stations. Came the announcement in the melodic Zephyrian language, followed by the harsh mechanical translation in standard human. Collision imminent in 37 minutes. Marcus ran through the corridors with his crew chief, Elena Rodriguez, a brilliant young woman whose hacking skills had been noticed by the Dominion before. Her conscription. Together, they reached the station's control room, where dozens of humans were frantically working to divert the asteroid. "The deflection arrays are offline," shouted Jake Morrison, a former Earth Defense Force captain, whose military bearings still showed despite years of suppression. "We need to reroute power from the mining systems." Marcus looked at the readouts and felt something strange. For the first time in 15 years, his mind felt clear. The stress of the situation, the adrenaline, something was interfering with his collar's neural dampening field. Memories flooded back, not just of engineering school, but of his father, who had worked on early space defense systems, of his sister, who had died during the integration protocol, of the life humanity had lost. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice stronger than it had been in years. "Look at these power consumption readings. The deflection arrays aren't offline, they're being remotely controlled." Elena frowned, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Her collar sparked slightly as her natural hacking instincts kicked in. "Marcus is right. There's an external signal overriding our systems. Someone wants this station destroyed." The realization hit them like a physical blow. The asteroid collision wasn't an accident. It was a test or an execution. The Dominion was willing to sacrifice an entire mining station and its 3,000 human workers for some unknown purpose. Jake's hands clenched into fists, his military training fighting against the collar's suppression. "Those crystalline bastards. They're not even trying to save us." Marcus felt anger burning in his chest, an emotion he hadn't experienced fully in decades. The collar sparked and sputtered as his neural patterns changed. Around the control room, Other humans were experiencing similar awakenings as stress and desperation overwhelmed their suppressors. "I can break the override," Elena said, her eyes bright with determination. "But I need access to the Dominion's communication array." "That's in the administrative section," Jake replied. "Heavily guarded, biometric locks, the works." Marcus studied the station schematics, his engineering mind working at full capacity for the first time in years. "Not necessarily. The communication array shares power coupling with the mining systems. If we create a feedback loop in the plasma conduits, we can cause a power surge that will reset the entire network." Elena grinned, and Marcus realized it was the first genuine smile he had seen on a human face in years. "That's brilliant, but it's also incredibly dangerous. The plasma feedback could destroy half the station." "Better than letting them murder us all," Jake said grimly. They worked together, moving through the station like ghosts. Marcus realized that something extraordinary was happening. As their collars failed, other humans throughout the station were awakening too. Maintenance workers were remembering their lives before the conquest. Scientists were recalling suppressed research. Soldiers were feeling the weight of weapons in their hands again. In the engineering section, Marcus carefully reconfigured the plasma distribution network while Elena hacked into auxiliary systems. Jake coordinated with awakening humans throughout the station, organizing them with military precision. The neural collars, designed to suppress individuals, had never been tested against a coordinated group effort. "Feedback loop is ready," Marcus announced. "This is going to hurt." Elena nodded, her hands poised over the controls. "Do it." The plasma surge ripped through the station systems like lightning. Emergency lighting flickered, gravity generators stuttered, and every neural collar on the station overloaded simultaneously. 3,000 humans suddenly felt the full weight of 2 centuries of oppression crash down on them like a tidal wave. Instead of breaking them, it forged them into something new. The asteroid deflection arrays came back online, and Elena redirected the massive space rock with casual ease. But that was just the beginning. As word spread through hidden communication channels old, emergency protocols that the Dominion had never bothered to disable humans across the galaxy began to hear about Omega-7. Dr. Sarah Voss, a former Dominion biotechnology researcher on the industrial world of Kepler Prime, received the transmission while pretending to work on genetic modification projects. She had been one of the few humans allowed to work in advanced sciences, but only under strict supervision. When her collar failed during a routine maintenance accident, she suddenly remembered why she had really been working on those genetic projects. The Dominion had been trying to breed aggression out of humanity for generations. But they hadn't understood that human aggression wasn't just about violence. It was about the refusal to give up, the determination to survive against impossible odds, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. Captain Morrison's military network activated across dozens of worlds. Former soldiers, police officers, and security personnel who had been scattered across the Dominion suddenly remembered their training. They began organizing, using maintenance schedules and work rotations to mask military planning. Elena's hacking skills, unleashed from their constraints, proved devastating to Dominion information systems. She discovered that the Zephyrians had made their technology beautiful and efficient, but they had also made it standardized. Every ship, every station, every planetary defense grid used the same basic systems. And Elena now had admin access. Marcus found himself becoming a symbol without meaning to. The story of the engineer who had saved Omega-7 spread through the human underground like wildfire. But more importantly, he had proven something crucial. The Dominion's technology could be turned against them. The first coordinated strike came just 3 days after the Omega-7 incident. Elena had identified a major supply convoy route between the Dominion's industrial worlds and their military bases. Marcus had designed a way to overload the convoy's navigation systems using their own communication arrays. Jake had organized strike teams on 17 different worlds. The attack was simple and devastating. As the massive supply ships dropped out of hyperspace at their regular nav beacon, their own systems turned against them. Navigation computers sent them into asteroids. Life support systems vented atmosphere, and weapon systems fired on nearby Dominion escorts. Asterisk in 12 minutes. Humanity had destroyed more Dominion materiel than all previous resistance movements combined. But the most shocking art wasn't the destruction. It was the message Elena broadcast across every Dominion communication channel in the galaxy. Her face appeared on screens in Zephyrian command centers, civilian centers, and slave colonies alike. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I am human. We are done being your property." Emperor Vexstar of the Dominion watched the transmission from his crystalline palace, orbiting the capital world of Zephyr Prime. He was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, his translucent skin shimmering with patterns of rank and authority. He had ruled for over 800 years and had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved. Asterisk. Initial estimates suggest several thousand across multiple systems. Your luminescence, Krell replied. But the number appears to be growing rapidly. Vexstar dismissed the concern with a wave of his crystalline hand. Several thousand primitives. With stolen technology. Deploy the pacification fleet to the affected systems. End this quickly. But Admiral Krell had been studying the attack patterns, and something troubled him. The humans hadn't just stolen Dominion technology, they had improved it. Their modifications to the supply convoy systems showed an understanding of Zephyrian engineering that should have been impossible. On distant worlds, the human awakening continued to spread. Dr. Voss had established underground networks to evacuate human families before Dominion retaliation arrived. Marcus had begun training other engineers in sabotage techniques. Jake's military cells were growing from hundreds to thousands. And Elena, working from a hidden base in the Outer Rim, was preparing her masterpiece, a virus that would propagate through every Dominion system, turning their own technology into humanity's greatest weapon. The Zephyrian Dominion had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and military might. They had never encountered an enemy that could match their technological prowess. While exceeding their determination and adaptability, they were about to learn why humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinction events on their homeworld. The fire of human rebellion had been lit, and it was about to spread across the stars like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Asterisk. The fire spread's Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship Crystal Sovereignty, watching his fleet emerge from hyperspace above the rebellious mining station. Omega-7, 300 of the Dominion's finest warships spread out in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls gleaming like deadly jewels against the starfield. "Orders." "Admiral?" asked his tactical officer. Krell hesitated. Emperor Vexstar had been clear. Make an example of the humans that would be remembered for generations. But something about the intelligence reports troubled him. These weren't random acts of terrorism. They showed coordination and sophistication. That suggested a level of organization the Dominion had never credited to humanity. "Scan the station," he ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The scans revealed something impossible. The mining station should have held 3,000 humans and minimal defenses. Instead, the sensors showed massive power readings and energy signatures that matched advanced Dominion military technology. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, his voice uncertain, "the station appears to be armed." Before Krell could respond, space around his fleet lit up with weapons fire. But these weren't crude human projectiles or stolen Dominion energy beams. These were perfectly coordinated quantum torpedo strikes that seemed to anticipate the fleet's defensive patterns. The human resistance had spent the week since their awakening doing what humans did best: adapting, learning, and improving. Marcus. Chun had studied captured Dominion weapons and discovered their fundamental weakness. They were designed to fight other crystalline species with predictable tactics. Against human creativity and unpredictability, they were vulnerable. Elena Rodriguez had done something the Dominion thought impossible. She had hacked their quantum encryption protocols, not by breaking the code, but by convincing the Dominions' own systems that her commands were legitimate. Every ship in Krell's fleet was receiving false sensor data, making them fire at phantom targets, while real threats approached undetected. Dr. Sarah Voss had used her access to Dominion genetic databases to develop a biological agent that specifically targeted Zephyrian neural tissue. It wouldn't kill them, but it would cause severe disorientation and confusion, enough to level the playing field. And Jake Morrison had organized something that struck fear into every military commander in the galaxy: human soldiers who fought without regard for their own survival, using tactics no civilized species would consider. The battle for Omega-7 lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Dominion had lost 43 ships, and Admiral Krell was forced to retreat with the remainder of his fleet. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Zephyrian Dominion had been defeated in direct combat. But the humans weren't finished. As news of the victory spread through the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. Other enslaved species began to rise up. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had always been able to suppress resistance by keeping different species separated and dependent on Dominion technology. Not the humans changed that equation. Elena's hacking techniques worked on any Dominion system, regardless of which species operated it. Marcus's engineering improvements could be adapted by any technologically capable species. Jake's military tactics proved effective for anyone willing to sacrifice for freedom. Dr. Voss established what she called the Underground Railroad, a network of safe houses and escape routes that moved human families away from Dominion retaliation, while simultaneously evacuating other species that wanted to join the rebellion. Emperor Vexstar's response was swift and brutal. He ordered the complete sterilization of 12 human colonies, turning their surfaces to glass with orbital bombardment. The message was clear: surrender or face extinction. But the Emperor had fundamentally misunderstood human psychology. Instead of breaking human morale, the massacres ignited something primal in the species. Across the galaxy, human workers abandoned their posts and began sabotaging Dominion infrastructure with systematic precision. On the manufacturing world of Titan Beta, human technicians introduced microscopic flaws into every piece of military equipment they produced. The flaws wouldn't show up in quality testing, but they would cause catastrophic failures during combat. On the agricultural planet of New Eden, human farmers poisoned the grain supplies destined for Dominion military bases using compounds that were harmless to humans but toxic to Zephyrian biology. In the research stations orbiting Proxima Centauri, human scientists began sharing their discoveries with the Resistance instead of their Dominion overseers, revealing crucial weaknesses in Dominion technology and biology. Elena's masterpiece virus finally launched 6 weeks after the first uprising. Called the Prometheus Protocol, it spread through the Dominion's communication networks like wildfire, turning every connected system against its operators. Planetary defense grids fired on their own ships. Manufacturing facilities began producing weapons for the Resistance. Information databases revealed the locations of secret Dominion installations. Marcus had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a human who understood Zephyrian technology better than most Zephyrians. He led teams of engineers who could reprogram Dominion equipment in real time during battles, turning enemy advantages into human weapons. Dr. Voss made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing captured Zephyrian genetic material, she realized that the Dominion's greatest strength was also their fatal weakness. Zephyrians were essentially a hive mind species. Their crystalline biology allowed them to share thoughts and coordinate perfectly. But it also meant that the right kind of neural disruption could affect their entire species simultaneously. Working with Elena's hacking skills and Marcus's engineering expertise, she developed what they called the Liberty signal, a quantum frequency that would disrupt Zephyrian neural networks across the entire galaxy. Admiral Krell, meanwhile, had begun to question everything he had believed about the Dominion and their place in the galaxy. He had studied the human resistance with professional interest and growing respect. Their tactical innovations were brilliant, their technological adaptations were inspired, and their determination was absolute. Asterisk. When Emperor Vextar ordered him to use planet-killer weapons against human civilian populations, Krell made a decision that would have been unthinkable months earlier. He refused. The mutiny spread through the Dominion military with shocking speed, not because other commanders supported the humans, but because they had begun to respect them. Professional soldiers recognized that the humans were fighting the kind of war that military historians would study for millennia. Jake Morrison had established contact with Krell through secret channels. The conversation was brief, but historic. "You could have wiped us out completely," Jake said. "Why didn't you?" Krell's response surprised both of them. "Because you fight like warriors, not slaves. The galaxy needs warriors." The final battle came when the human resistance, now supported by dozens of other species and backed by defecting Dominion forces, launched a coordinated assault on Zephyr Prime itself. It wasn't revenge. It was a surgical strike designed to capture Emperor Vextar and force the Dominion surrender. Elena's virus had given them complete access to the planet's defenses. Marcus's engineering teams had modified captured Dominion ships to outperform the originals. Dr. Voss had deployed the Liberty signal, causing mass confusion among the defending Zephyrian forces. And Jake Morrison led the ground assault on the Imperial Palace with a force that included humans, former slaves from a dozen species, and even Zephyrian defectors who had chosen freedom over empire. Emperor Vextar faced the rebel leaders in his crystalline throne room, his ancient features showing defeat for the first time in 8 centuries. But when he looked at the humans who had brought down his empire, he saw something that surprised him. "You could destroy us," he said to Marcus, who had emerged as the de facto leader of the human resistance. "Why don't you?" Marcus Chun, the mining engineer who had become the liberator of the galaxy, considered the question seriously. "Because we're not conquerors," he said finally. "We just wanted to be free." The treaty signed that day established the Galactic Federation, with representation for every species that chose to join. The Zephyrians were not destroyed or enslaved. They were invited to become equals in a galaxy where no single species would ever again hold absolute power. Admiral Krell became the first Zephyrian ambassador to the Federation, working alongside Dr. Voss to establish peaceful relationships between former enemies. Elena Rodriguez founded the Galactic Information Network, ensuring that knowledge and communication would never again be used as tools of oppression. Jake Morrison established the Federation Defense Force, a military organization dedicated to protecting freedom rather than conquest. And Marcus Chun returned to what he had always been, an engineer. But now he worked on projects that would benefit the entire galaxy, building space stations, developing new technologies, and teaching other species that the human approach to problem-solving wasn't just about survival. It was about making life better for everyone. The Zephyrian Dominion had ruled through fear, superior technology, and the assumption that their way was the only way. They had never encountered a species that could take their own tools and use them better than they could. They had never faced humanity's greatest weapon, the absolute refusal to give up. The galaxy would never be the same. Where once there had been an empire built on subjugation, now there was a federation built on cooperation. Where once there had been fear, now there was hope. And somewhere in the outer rim, on a small space station where it all began, a plaque was installed that read, "In memory of those who dreamed of freedom, and in honor of those who made it reality." The fire that humanity had lit among the stars would burn forever, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a beacon of hope for any species that dared to dream of something better. The Galactic Empire had been unprepared for human determination. They would never make that mistake again.